Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here, got another Master Duel video for you, coming at you with another crafting guide for the new pack Regeneration of Stars, which is just launched here on Master Duel. This pack has a lot of new cards for a lot of new decks, and today we're going to go over exactly what these cards are used in, how many copies you'll need, and how good each of these cards are. So let's not waste any more time, let's go ahead and jump right on into it. Allied Code Talker at Ignister is a powerful new boss monster for the Ignister archetype, but as you're probably well aware, as we've already covered this on the channel, it's not just a power boost for Ignister. This card is also going to be played very heavily in Malice moving forward. Not only is it good with the current Malice list, but even if cards like Appaloosa get banned in the future, then Allied Code Talker at Ignister gets even better, allowing you to still play through hand traps like Nibiru even without Appaloosa. Very important part to the Malice deck, but of course it is also very important to Ignister as well. Ignister gets a pretty significant buff with this card and the other support in this pack, but not enough to make it a tier to deck. I think it's mostly just enough to let it keep up with the rest of the meta. As mentioned though, Malice will make a lot of use of this card, so I'm going to put its power level at tier 1, along with potentially some of the other Ignister cards we may or may not talk about, depending on how many of them are URs. I'm actually recording this part before all the URs are announced, so anyway. You only need the one copy, but definitely make sure to pick this up if you are playing Malice, or really just about any amount of Cyber decks. Regenesis Lord is the boss monster of the new Regenesis archetype featured in this pack. The Regenesis archetype is actually pretty solid. It is used in a number of decks, including its own. It kind of reminds me of playing Kashtira, Fenrir, and Unicorn in terms of like the kind of support they provide. It also plays very well with Kashtira, since of course Kashtira Unicorn has 2500 original attack, which this archetype cares about monsters with that value. The Regenesis archetype, well, I guess I'll talk about that a little bit here as I'm talking about their flagship boss monster, which you will play one copy of this card in pretty much every, not every single, but pretty much every deck you're playing Regenesis in. I think Regenesis is going to be an upper rogue power level archetype. As its own deck, it's quite solid, but the lack of extra deck monsters does actually leave you with fewer options than other decks as far as like stuff to go into, and overall that is going to impact its power level, I think, but still a very solid upper rogue deck. If you're interested, or if you happen to pull a lot of Regenesis URs, I would definitely hang on to them, and you will definitely get some good use out of them on ladder as well. Number 69, Heraldry Crest Dark Matter Demolition is the boss monster of the new wave of Heraldic support. This is actually a generic rank 4 though. You don't have to use Heraldics to make it. You do need 5 level 4s unless you're going to rank up through Heraldic effects though. So the Dark Matter Demolition is quite an interesting boss monster. Rather than outright negating monsters, it actually changes monster's name to unknown as a quick effect, and then as a continuous effect negates any monster with the name unknown. I think that's really cool. This card is occasionally played in Heraldic Beast variants, the most notable of which is Ryzeal. Heraldic Beast is a rank 4 archetype, so it does play pretty well with Ryzeal. That said, I gotta be completely honest, this is probably one of the weaker Ryzeal variants you could be playing. Not just counting pure, like even stuff like Shark Ryzeal I think is better than Heraldic Beast Ryzeal. Not by a ton, but I think by enough. So that said, even if you are playing Heraldic Beast Ryzeal, you don't always play this card. In fact, you don't play this card most of the time. So Heraldic Beast as a whole, I'm gonna also put in upper rogue. That is mostly off the back of Ryzeal, though, to be completely fair. And this card, I'm going to say you don't need. I'll just say 0. You can, it's option. I'll say 0 to 1. It is optional. You can play it, but it's definitely not required. Gem Knight Master Diamond Dispersion is the boss monster of the new wave of Gem Knight support. So obviously we knew this was coming with Brilliant Fusion and Block Dragon both going to 3. And I think those will go a long way for Gem Knights. From what I can tell in my research, Gem Knights actually seems like more of a tier 3 deck as opposed to Rogue. I was going to call it Rogue, but Yeah, just looking at both TCG and OCG in my research, there's a decent amount of tops here. So I will call it a tier 3 deck. That might be hedging a little bit high, but I think that's fine. I think it's fine to hedge high again because we have Brilliant Fusion and Block Dragon at 3, which a lot of formats, I think Master Duel is the only format that has both of those at 3. So those are, again, of course, going to be pretty significant buffs to Gem Knight. As a monster, you definitely want a copy of Master Diamond Dispersion in your extra deck. It's got a very powerful, quick effect to summon multiple gem monsters from your extra deck or graveyard, letting you have a huge variety of options to do on either player's turn. So, yeah, and with a fairly generic requirement of requiring any 3 gem monsters, definitely worth playing this card in your Gem Knight deck for sure. Invoked Magistus Omega is a new fusion monster that actually is for, of course, the Invoked archetype. Alistair the Invoker, still staying at least somewhat relevant in the year 2025, although not really that relevant. From what I can tell, there really aren't any decks that unfortunately make use of this. Not ones that have like a ton of competitive success anyway. This is kind of, I touched on this a little bit before, but this is kind of one of those waves of support for Invoked that don't really make it relevant in terms of the current meta. They just kind of somewhat help it keep up in terms of power level so the deck doesn't fall too far behind. It feels like one of those waves of support to me. I think this card has some potentially interesting applications, but it just seems really niche, right? It has to be destroyed in order to get the summon from the deck. And it banishes, stuff on the field, but only if you have an extra deck monster you are also willing to banish in the graveyard. It just seems like there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through for this to really have an impact, even once it's hit the board. And yeah, I think that ultimately it's not really worth playing. I guess if you're playing an Invoke deck, then yeah, I'll say play a copy of this, but I think Invoked is still going to be a lower rogue deck, even with this card. Spenta, the Magistus Sealer, is actually a phenomenal card for the Magistus archetype. It's also a card that has a lot of use outside of that as an engine as well. In fact, looking at some of these statistics in the OCG, it looks like Spenta is actually fairly often played at 3 in Dracotail. This is a deck that is quite good, but wouldn't expect to see it in Master Duel for at least a little bit of time, but it'll probably be at least a couple of months if I had to guess. So with this card, I would say if you pull any copies, they're worth holding on to, not just for Dracotail, but again, I think this card does have a lot of promise as an engine, even outside of just the Magistus archetype. So for the power level, I think I'm going to put it in upper rogue for now, but I can see this going up easily with time. Like I said, I would just hold on to any extra copies of this you happen to pull. Gem Knight Nephirim is one of the new pieces of support for the Gem Knight archetype, and it is a pretty powerful one. Being able to add any Gem Knight card from your deck to your hand, obviously except itself, giving you extra normal summons, and also allowing you to special summon this card back when it's sent to the graveyard from the hand or deck. Just a lot of things that Gem Knight wants to be doing. Also worth noting that it's a level 4 that extends. I know I saw some people talking on the Discord about how you could use Gem Knight as a Ryzeal engine, so that's worth thinking about. I'm going to put it at tier 3 like the other Gem Knight cards here, because I think that this archetype does show a lot of promise. It's put up a lot of results in both TCG and OCG, and this new support is quite strong. We, of course, also have Brilliant Fusion and Block Dragon at 3 to help support the archetype, so very eager to see how good Gem Knight ends up being. I'm going to call it tier 3 for now, but I can see it either being a little bit better or worse than that in the long run. We'll see. We'll see how it pans out. Emilia, Dance Priestess of the Necros. It's part of the new support for that archetype. And while this card is a very solid consistency boost for the archetype, you can summon it if you have one of your ritual monsters out, warrior ritual monsters out specifically, or I guess just warrior Necros monsters out. Can revive for the graveyard as well. It searches on summon, and of course, like a lot of the Necros cards, it can be used as the entire material for a ritual summon. So while that is all good, and that is all definitely stuff that Necros wanted, it doesn't ultimately solve a lot of the problems that Necroz has, which is that it just kind of struggles to keep up, I think, more in power level. Well, consistency too, but this card, of course, helps with that. So I think Necroz is going to be continuing to be on the lower end of the rogue spectrum. I don't think that Amelia here does a lot to change that, but that doesn't mean that, you know, some support for an older archetype that helps it at least somewhat keep up like this isn't appreciated. It is definitely nice to see these cards. Back up at Ignister. Alright, this is a card that I've already talked about at length, at least its applications in Malice, and we'll definitely be covering more combos here in the coming days. Backup at Ignister is a pretty phenomenal piece of support for almost any Cybers deck, at least dark Cybers decks, or cards that have decks that have dark Cybers cards, I should say. Being able to search those. The most notable of which, I don't think I need to tell you, but is Malice, and this card is absolutely a 3 of in Malice. It's not only the deck's best extender, but in conjunction with any hand trap that you can normal summon, actually does just get you into full Malice combo. Again, I've showed off some of these combo lines already on the channel, but I will definitely be showing off more here in the next couple of days. But yeah, regardless of if you're picking this up for Malice or if you do actually want to play Ignister, definitely get 3 copies of this card, and it is absolutely going to be tier 1 power level in Malice for sure. Regenesis Archfiend is a pretty important tool for the Regenesis deck. Of course, on summon they can search any Regenesis card, so naturally you would expect it to be fairly useful there. As far as Regenesis as a whole, I think the deck is going to be like upper rogue power level. It's a very, very solid deck, and you do see it get a fair amount of results. That said, it's still not quite as strong as, you know, some of the other archetypes even featured here. I think looking at a lot of builds for Regenesis, a lot of it does seem like it relies on the back of some floodgatey type continuous trap cards to lock down the board while you're spamming a bunch of big bodies in the names of the Regenesis cards. We've seen other strategies like this. To be fair, the Regenesis archetype does do things a lot more efficiently than a lot of other archetypes that have done this in the past, which will likely mean that it is, you know, going to see more play as a result. But that said, you know, it's kind of one of those things where if you get the Regenesis cards and you want to try it out, I think it is worth trying out, but I wouldn't sweat over getting this archetype over, again, some other ones like the Ignister and Gem Knight cards that are in this pack. But that said, I think they're still at least somewhat interesting, and you could, in theory, use them as an engine to help support another deck as well. So I think kind of like some other cards here, Regenesis stuff, if you happen to pull it, might be worth holding on to, but I wouldn't go super out of your way for it, necessarily. Gem Knight Dispersion is a new fusion and searching spell for the Gem Knight archetype, and it seems like a pretty obvious slam dunk to me. I think if you're going to play a dedicated Gem Knight deck, you definitely want to be playing probably 3 copies of this card. If nothing else, for the second effect. This is just straight up Rhoda for Gem Knights. Can add any gem monster from deck or banishment to hand, which is pretty cool. But also having the option to be a fusion effect on top of that is very, very nice. It can even use materials from the deck if you have Gem Knight Fusion in your graveyard. So, yeah, I mean, it seems like a pretty obvious slam dunk to me. If you're playing Gem Knights, which I think is going to be a tier 3 deck, then you should definitely be playing 3 of this card. Regenesis is a normal spell that is also the namesake of the archetype it supports. And much like a lot of these cards here, actually, I'm noticing a trend in the URs in this pack in particular. This is a search card, which means it's going to be a 3 of if you want to play Regenesis. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I need to explain that. If you want to be playing Regenesis, then searching Regenesis monsters from deck to hand is pretty good. Also, being able to search other things with 2500 attack and defense is interesting, but do note that it is 2500 attack and defense, not or. So, it doesn't quite search like as much stuff as you would like, but it's there, you know. But yeah, no, I like I said before, this is going to be an upper rogue deck, and if you are going to play this upper rogue deck, then you should be picking up a playset of this. And that is going to do it for our coverage of the Regeneration of Stars pack. As far as the actual pack contents itself go, Of course, we are going to be covering these new cards here in this upcoming week, most notably going to be our updates to Malice, but definitely be sure to stick around for that. In the meantime, thank you so very much for watching. Let's go ahead and move on now to our outro. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.